Great call to join us in the trenches with Dave Lapham, brought to you by First Star Logistics, as always, coming to you from the studios that First Star Logistics provides for us as well. And we have a great guest for you on this podcast, video cast. I mean, he's extraordinary, honestly. Young coach, 38 years old. I mean, this guy is all football all the time. Mike Hodges. I just want to make sure that I get this point across. This kind of sums him up. When he was in college, when he was a senior in college, he won the Hart Award, highest honor given to a senior. A Hart Award. His heart and soul is in the game of football. Starts in his head, goes to his heart. And he loves developing young players and developing Pro Bowl players, taking them to a higher level. Everybody is coachable. They want to be coached. He understands that. He coaches people. I think his linebackers are going to play at an extremely high level. They're going to be prepared. And the linebackers, let's face it, the linebackers coordinate everything. They give instructions to the defensive line. They talk with the safeties, make sure they're in sync coverage-wise with the back end. The linebackers are the lifeblood of a defense. They're going to be coached by a really, really enthusiastic, energetic football guy, a football lifer. We appreciate you joining us in the trenches like you do, because without you, we don't have it in the trenches with Dave Lapham, brought to you by First Star Logistics. And today it's going to be well worth your while because we have a linebacker coach of the Cincinnati Bengals. And I'm excited about this guy because you know why? The biggest reason why? This man loves football. Loves football. And when you get coaches that love football, when you have players that love football, the odds of success are all that much higher. Played at the at college football. He's coached now with the New Orleans Saints. Coached in the National Football League, obviously college football as well. Now with the New Orleans Saints for an 8-year stint, and that's impressive to me because there are changes. Changes organizationally, be it general managers, head coaches, coordinators, whatever. This guy stayed for 8 years with the New Orleans Saints, and I'm telling you, was instrumental in the development of some hellacious linebackers down there, man. Did a hell of a job bringing on some linebackers and Pro Bowl caliber level linebackers. And I'm speaking about Mike Hodges. Coach, appreciate you. Thanks for joining us this morning, sir.
Yeah, thank you for having me. I appreciate it, Dave, and excited to have a little conversation and get to know you guys a little bit better. Excited to get up there.
I tell you, everybody says that your energy is contagious. That's what talking to Zach and others are like. I'm telling you, man, this guy is an unbelievable, energetic, just an ambassador of the game of football. I mean, you're a lifer, I guess, right, Coach?
It's interesting because I didn't grow up in the business or even really playing the game or watching. Obviously I grew up in Texas, and so the Dallas Cowboys were rocking and rolling in the 90s, so we had that on Sundays. But outside of that, it wasn't like I was wearing a jersey or had a team. But what happened is you get into the game and you get into the challenges that present, and then you see what happens when you push through it. And there's been trials and tribulations throughout the whole deal, but I think it's just made my love for what football gives me. And it's like anything, the more I pour in, the more it gives back. And that's both the game and the players. And so anyways, to answer your question, the last half of my life, it absolutely has been the center of my life. And I couldn't be more passionate about anything else. I don't know. I would leave the business if my wife said you have to leave or you're leaving me. I'd leave it in a heartbeat. Now, but I'd have a hard time figuring out what I'm going to do after that. I'll tell you that. So this has definitely become my calling. And I couldn't be more grateful.
Yeah, man, the love of the game is just it oozes out of your pores, man. There's no doubt about that. And when you're working with young players and veteran players, and you're developing them, and you can see the development, you can see the graph, the charts going up. You can see
Sure.
that development process. The game, in my mind, the game is all about relationships,
That's
and
right.
the relationship between the coach, particularly the position coach and that player that are every single day in meetings together on the football field together, on and off the field together. I mean, those relationships are strong, aren't they? I mean, and that seems to be what you're all about, coach. You seem to be a relationship guy.
I think that, and you're going to get me on a tangent here, Dave. So, like, I had this conversation. I went to the gym this morning. They still had my facial recognition still worked at the Saints facility, so I stuck in there for another workout. But I got on this conversation with one of the trainers there, and as you've gone through both the beginning of my time in New Orleans, which was winning was expected every time. Drew Brees, Sean Payton, we were rocking and rolling. I thought winning in the NFL was easy. And then the back half of my 8 years, there's been obviously more struggles. And when you look through that tenure of 8 years, and I focused on what my job was, which was developing and building the linebacker room as strong as I could, there's no doubt to me, be it working with Demario Davis, who's a 13-year vet, or Pete Warner, who I got as a rookie, or Zach Bond, or Caden Ellis, or Alex Anzalone, all these guys that have gone off and done really great things.
Yeah.
The thing that has paid back to me more than anything was the phone calls that I get after the season from these guys that have left, and the respect and the appreciation they shared with me as far as how I've been as a person and how I've been as a ball coach to them. And so you see those dividends pay off, because there's a lot of work that goes into that. And I'm extremely intentional with my relationships. I think it is absolutely critical. Dave, I'm going to go on this a little bit. So, like,
Yeah, I'm with you.
we're called coaches, right? So,
Yep.
but every coach you've met is like, oh, I'm really just a teacher. I'm just a teacher. Well, but a teacher can teach a lecture to 250 people and teach them well, right? I can teach my wife how to play cover four here,
Right.
right? But the
Yep.
difference in teachers versus coaches is that human element. I don't have to have a connection sitting in the back row learning about business 101 at the business school, right?
Very true.
But here, there's a level of capturing the hearts and minds of these guys so that I can inspire them and maximize them as players and people. And so that's where I will never allow that part of the formula to escape me. Because if I do, it doesn't matter how much I know, Dave, how much I can teach them. Because the old saying, and I'm going to butcher the saying, but people don't care how much you know until they know how much you care. And you just keep dragging that into it. And it's like, Dave, you'll probably remember some of your coaches, and you may not remember what they taught you, but you remember how they made you feel. And that's what holds on to these guys. And so I've already started that. I was able to get on the phone with Logan. I hope to call some of the other guys today. But I think it's priority number one.
Coach, you're a tremendous example. I can already tell just talking to you here for this brief time. I mean, to me, like you said, I can remember every single coach I had from my freshman year in high school all the way through, my last day of my playing career.
That's
Every
right.
single position coach, every single coordinator, every single head coach, everybody made an impact in different ways. Some very much more positively, some maybe negatively, but you learn from that or whatever, and everything in between. But it's a dynamic thing. But when you're part of the process, and like you watch Zach Bond making plays in the NFC Championship game, and you're saying to yourself, you know what, I feel a connection with this guy. I mean, it's from the head to the heart. It's like football, you teach, like you said, you teach them, and then it goes to the heart, and then you're out there physically transferring that to the football field, and the bonds that go on with teammates and coaches and coaches to teammates, teammates to coaches, and all that. That's what football is all about. And you see guys that maybe moved on from your presence, but your presence had an impact. And now look where they are. Look where they're going. That's got to be rewarding as hell.
It is. It is. And now there's a double-edged sword there too, right? Like, come back, you know what I mean? And be part. But you just can't keep everybody. And quite honestly, people thrive in a little bit different environment at times, be it a different scheme.
Yep.
And there's two reasons I speak to all my guys after they leave. One is because I'm just excited for them and I want them to know I want to be a part of their life going forward. But two, man, these players are my best teachers. There's not a day that goes by or a meeting room that goes by that I can't learn from these guys. And I think that once you set your ego aside, man, there's such valuable lessons that you get back from these guys, because if there's a level of comfort, they're going to be open with you and you're going to learn from them. And so that's where I think it's important. But you're right, Dave. I think that when I see these guys succeed, now Caden Ellis being in my division did not help watching him succeed as much. But for him personally, he knew I was rooting for him. I just wish he didn't beat us as many times as he did. But you're right, man. You're a little piece of it. You know, Zach Bond, Allie, their son. I mean, they're coming back to New Orleans, playing for a Super Bowl, and they're grateful to. My wife is talking to his wife just yesterday, and man, how valuable is that? Because those are the things that last. He doesn't need to remember how I taught him to play run fits and cover 4. He needs to remember that if shit hit the fan, he's got me. He can call me, and that's what's important to me.
You know, it's going to be very interesting. I just, Coach Montgomery, he was with Green Bay for 9 years. You're with New Orleans for 8 years. Coach Golden, I'm sure, is going to be like, hey, you know what, guys? This is not a dictatorship. This is this is a collaboration. And give me some idea. What worked well for you guys when you were down in New Orleans for that stretch? I mean, what did you garner? Maybe from different coordinators, whatever. But what were the constants? What were the things that you said? This is one of our principles. This is one of our foundational pieces, or whatever. And the same thing with Coach Montgomery. I think Coach Golden is going to be very open to that. Do you feel that way?
Oh, well, yes, I felt that way. One, because of the conversations and just getting to know him as we kind of start on this path, but also because he literally said this is going to be ours. So there was no gray in the conversation. I brought up a few things and I told him, look, I'm going to be a sponge. I'm not going to try to interject. I'm going to try to build this system around everything you want and your philosophy. And his response back was, Mike, this is going to be ours. And so it's extremely refreshing to hear him say that. The little bit I know about him, man, there's just a lot of excitement to be able to be under his leadership and learn from someone new who clearly knows how to do it the right way. I know he's detail oriented. I know he's going to focus on the energy and the relationships and making sure that we get the right scheme, but ultimately we get these players to play in a fashion and with a brand that understands that it's not going to be the play call. It's going to be our play style and in our ability to play together. That's really going to allow us to succeed and give Jamar and Burrow those, what they need, the ball a few more times just to keep scoring for us. There's no doubt.
I'm excited to see, even at practice, the energy level. I mean, Coach Montgomery, up front, you at the linebacker level, Coach Golden coordinating the whole thing, the new members of the defensive side of the football. It's just, I mean, it's going to be, the enthusiasm out there is going to be off the charts. It's going to be a sight to behold for sure, man. It's tremendously exciting. Have you already started breaking down tape? Have you already started looking at players, looking at schemes, looking at all that stuff, or is it too early?
No, well, the only hoop I've got to jump through is am I working off the Saints facility and their program, or today I'm going to try to get on with everything with the Bengals and try to be able to work remote there. But to answer your question, in preparation for the interview and the conversation with Zach and Al last week, I had already studied Logan just because I knew that where he kind of stood with the club, and I'm going to dive
Yeah.
in. I started watching Germaine yesterday. So the focus right now is really just to evaluate our players, and it's twofold. One, evaluate them and figure out where they are, where they're going, what do we think about them, but also knowing that some of these guys are coming back. One thing I think is important, Dave, is to create a plan of attack, and I did that for Logan already. And I was talking to him yesterday. It's one thing to identify things that he does well and things that he can do better, um, but it's more importantly to to have a plan for those areas of growth,
Yep.
those growth opportunities. Well, how are we going to do it? And actually detail out a plan. And so that's where I think is some of the secret sauce right there to actually developing these guys. And look, I did it with Demario Davis going into his 13th season. I identify at least 2 to 3 things. I
Mm-hmm.
identify a way to get better.
Yep.
And he has been more than he's been excited about those things, those areas that I've identified each year. And I think that each year there's areas that we can grow from. And so that's going to be where the focus starts. And then at some point, I'm sure they're going to give us the college tape, and that it's really going to be personnel driven early on. And then I'm sure Al will get us together for some scheme stuff starting next week.
I'm excited for the veteran players because, like you say, Davis, a Pro Bowl player, but I found Anthony Munoz, greatest lineman that ever played. I have the privilege of playing right next to the guy,
Uh-huh.
and the guy wanted to be coached. The guy wanted to learn. The guy wanted to get better. The great ones do, And I mean, guys, no matter what stage of their career that they're at, when they have a coach like you that has the intent that you have, that has the knowledge that you have, that has the willingness to, give that knowledge. I mean, guys are gonna be all over you, coach. I mean, it's players want to be coached well, and when they know they're getting coached well, man, they respond big time, big time.
That's right. I think there's the structure that I think all of us thrive on. I think structure is important, and I think that when a player knows that you care about them and that you're trying to extend their career, they're going to be all ears.
Yep.
And I think also I've already started this, and I will make sure that I emphasize this with the group, that it's a collaboration. If they have an opinion on something, I want to talk about it, be it scheme or be it technique or fundamentals, be it how I structure a meeting. I've already, I think all of these pieces to build the right environment, the learning environment, the growth environment, I think all of those pieces are important. And so then we're going to focus on that. And to your point about the great ones want to be coached, as recent as this past year, Demario's 13th year after being an all-pro 5 years in a row or whatever,
Yep.
he came to me at some point. He's like, "Hey, I need you to make sure you coach me harder this year in week 2." And I'm like, "What do you mean?" And he's like, he goes, "If I want to call out the players the way I want to call them out this year, I need you to call me out more." And I'm not a dog cusser. I've never spoke down to a player.
Sure.
And you got to, and I don't think you treat them all the same. You treat them accordingly. But later that day, he missed a play, and I barked at him in the right way. Right, that's your guy. And when you see a coach and player be able to see that for growth and not take anything personal, well, the guys behind him say, "Oh, I'm cool with getting coached in a certain way." And so, again, I'm going to coach everybody the way I think that helps them. And some guys handle things differently. But for that player to come to me really the last 3 years and be like, "Man, your technique teaching is better than ever. Please don't stop that." And then we're getting ready for week 17, week 18, whatever it was, last game of the season. And the season's over. There's no playoff chances. The guy's 35 years old. And when the offense was out doing their drills or doing their team periods, DeMario was off doing his own individuals by himself. as if he's preparing for another game or another season.
Wow.
And I took a mental note. Actually, I took an actual note on my
Right.
script there.
Right.
And what better example of a guy who's always trying to grow? And
Yep.
so I think, again, I've learned from these guys as much as I've probably more than I've been able to teach them. But those are all examples that I want to make sure that guys understand how important it is to continue to develop. And it all starts with technique and fundamentals.
Coach, it's interesting because my rookie year, my first offensive line coach was Bill Tiger Johnson, who was a Pro Bowl center for the 49ers, snapped the ball to Y.A. Tittle, one of the great quarterbacks, of his era, Hall of Famer. And Tiger was awesome, man. Tiger was just an unbelievable line coach, teaching technique, teaching, assignments, teaching scheme, the whole 9 yards. And I remember my rookie year, uh, I'm playing in a game in my rookie year, and I come to the sideline. He said, "Dang it! I just want to tell you I'm proud of you, son." I'm like, "Coach, why is that?" He goes, "Because on your own, you figured out what to do out there. You made the adjustment that needed to be made out there because I've hope that I've helped teach you not just what we're doing, but why we're doing it, son. And you proved to me out there that you figured out why we're doing things. What you did was advance, man. Rookies don't do that, man. I'm proud of you. And I was like, I felt like $1,000,000. And right then it clicked. This is what the player coach relationship is supposed to be like, man. I mean, it's like, I fell in love with the guy even more based on that because he was right. I mean, he helped me figure out why, not just what you're doing, man, not just a robot, but why you're doing it. I mean, and that opened my eyes to another level of football.
That's right. That's right. Just to inspire these guys to have empowerment, of what we're doing, why we're doing it, and then all of a sudden, these guys are smart, man. They really are. They love the game, and nothing's more powerful than having a couple of good problem solvers out there.
Yep.
And I've experienced guys that problem solve well. I experienced guys that do everything within the rules. You got rules guys, you got guideline guys. It's okay to have a guy that kind of leans outside of that from time to time, um, to make things right.
Yeah.
We Mike Nolan used to say, "Hey man, you got to overcome my coaching sometimes." It's like mix us right out there. And so look, we're all human. We're all human, and I think if we keep our ego out of it, we can grow together.
Coach, your position group that you're coaching, the linebacker group, has to be unique. They have to have extremely high football IQ. They're the guys that are telling the defensive lineman, "Oh man, no, get over another gap." They're making sure everything's right up front. They're making sure that everything's right at their level. They're making sure they're communicating with the safeties or whatever, from a cut. They're communicating with the whole dynamic. They're not just communicating with their position group.
That's right.
Uh, and so these guys have to understand the entire schematic and the why of the schematic. And then they have to be physically gifted enough to come downhill and stuff that running game or drop back into coverage and not be a liability in a zone or playing man or whatever the case may be. Linebackers, man, you're coaching a rare breed, aren't you?
Yeah, and I think that the game has changed so much. You got to cover guys like Alvin and Christian, and um, the kid in Detroit. I mean, these guys are. It is not a fun job to try to figure out how to cover those guys. But I think really just to piggyback on what you're saying is, in certain positions you lean heavier on tangibles versus intangibles. Well, in our room, in our linebacker room, and we'll get with Al and figure out exactly what his vision is for the position. But I have a feeling we're going to be very much in line. The intangibles are just as important, and oftentimes maybe even outweigh the tangibles. And it's important because if you're tough and smart through the core of your defense, D tackles, linebackers, safeties, and they're problem solvers, Dave, like we just discussed. And you have the skill players, the guys that can beat a tackle on the edge or cover a guy one on one. Well, now you've got a pretty good formula to be able to succeed. And so I think it starts there, and I've learned a lot from some really good evaluators here in New Orleans, and I hope to. I know this. We got a small personnel staff in Cincinnati, which will be an adjustment for me because we got an army here in New Orleans.
Right.
Um, but I'm excited because I feel like I'm well prepared and well tooled to attack that. And so we just got to get the right guys. They're not always the best guys, but the right guys for our group, and that's going to be important that we address it that way.
Yeah, a wise defensive coordinator that had success in the league that was coaching our defense for a little bit when I was playing. Hank Bulla, the doctor of defense, Henry Bulla, Hank Bulla. He had a saying, okay, in baseball, you got to be strong up the middle defensively, catch your shortstop, center field. Same thing in football, man. He said, my defensive tackles, my inside backers, my safeties. You guys, you're my catcher, shortstop, center fielder, just like you're describing. I mean, he laid it out the same way. He goes, if we're weak there, we're done. If they're
Right.
making errors and they're weak up the middle defensively, they're done in baseball. I mean, just exactly what you said, man.
That's right. That's right. I
Great.
believe in that. I think it's true.
Yeah. So, uh, what coach over the years, or coaches over the years, and I'm sure a bunch of them impacted, the way who you are today. But anybody, or you care to throw out a few names that maybe were instrumental in the creation of what you are as a coach?
If you go back, there's high school coaches, Andy Padron, Dave Molesky. Dave Molesky's a guy who's the head coach now at my high school. He was my defensive coordinator. We've stayed in touch, and just their attention to detail, their intensity, um, their relational approach to it all. That was important to me. And then really just piggybacking on that, I find a way to get to Texas A&M after the Air Force Academy, and you've got guys like Dat Wynn as my position coach my last year, and a guy who comes in with clout. He's in the Hall of Fame at Texas A&M before he even shows up as a ball coach. I'm the sole senior in the room, and man, we gravitate towards each other because of how we approach things. We're very similar. Um, get to know him, his wife, his family, and so I realized how important that relational part of it was, Dave, and so that became very important to me. But obviously from a big picture, working with Sean Payton and seeing the success that we had early on, and him coming in every week with a different way to motivate and being up in front of that room and capture the guys. I've been around Aaron Glenn, who just got a head coaching job, Ryan Nielsen, who's coached the last 2 years as coordinator. Dan Campbell was in our building. Joe Lombardi was in our building. Joe Brady we shared a locker before he was the biggest name in New Orleans or in the state of Louisiana in the game when he went over to LSU.
Wow.
10 months later, he was the hottest name in football.
Right.
When I got here, there was a rock star staff, and I took pieces from each. I didn't realize how good everybody was. It just felt like a good staff. Well, now everybody is succeeding the way they are. And so it's been fun to learn from those guys and see how they approach the game. I've just been very blessed to be around such a talented group of coaches over the last decade or so.
And finally, coach, and you've been so generous with your time, but you're the kind of guy I could talk with for 7 hours, man, about football. You're the best. But you're married, you got a young family, a couple of young kids.
That's
Now
right.
you're getting things together in New Orleans. You're coming to Cincinnati. I mean, that's always it's the life of a football coach's family, man. It's an interesting dynamic for sure. Yeah, you're getting all that done. But when you come to Cincinnati, speak about back at A&M, Joey Bosse, Zach Taylor. I mean, you've got some people here within the organization, within the building that you already have some familiarity with and a relationship with. How big is that, Coach?
Because I mentioned we haven't moved a lot. We've been blessed to be in one place for 8 years, and
Right.
I know coaches that would cut off their pinky toe to do that.
Yep.
And so, but there's also the challenge of the discomfort of having to make a move, and so. But you're right. Like Joey, talking about people that have influenced me. Joey's one of my best friends in the business, and Zach Taylor. I mean, he was coaching me on scout team at Texas A&M in 2008. I was ineligible as a transfer. So these are two guys that I've known for over a decade that are just are always people that if I picked up the phone and called them, they answered or they got back to me. And, Joey and I, obviously we're closer and just because we work together at Fresno State as well. But Troy Walters was at Texas A&M before I left. I've gotten to know Pitch. Rascati and I coached against each other when I was at Eastern Illinois and he was at
Really?
UT Martin. So I got to know Rascati 9 or 10 years ago. So to be able to walk into a building and have these relationships, believe me, and a lot of them have young families. And so their wives have reached out to mine. And so all those things you talk about, like the game is important and we got to focus on there. But where I think a lot of people miss is, man, what is happening behind the scenes? We're not just changing a job and going. I don't know how I got fireworks behind my head here. And we're not just changing a job and working from a new office building, but still driving to the same residence. No, we're picking up our world and moving it. And so, just to answer your question in short, being around those people will definitely help with the transition, and we're excited and grateful for that.
I mean, Coach Montgomery's 45 years old. You're 38 years old. I mean, this is a young, but yet very experienced, enthusiastic, energetic, football brilliant coaching staff. I'm telling you, man, can't wait. I'm ready for the season already. I mean, it's one of those dynamics. I mean, football's been my life. There's no question about that. And I'm excited when I see guys like you that, I mean, love the game. Like I said before, I mean, are totally all in the game of football. And that's what Zach's culture, has brought here to Cincinnati, man. And I'm grateful and very enthusiastic about it. That's for sure.
Great. Well, thank you, man. I think there's a lot of work to be done, and the enthusiasm takes you so far, but it definitely is something that without that motor, all the other things are harder. So at least we've got that going for us, and we got to get the other pieces in place to really get this thing going and go win some football games.
Well, I'll tell you what, can't thank you enough for your time. The visit was extraordinary. I can see where everybody's so high on Mike Hodges coaching linebackers, man. Appreciate you. Thanks for your time. Hope everything goes smoothly for you and your family during the transition, Coach.
Thanks, Dave. I look forward to meeting you in person.
Same here, sir. Much appreciated.
Yes, sir. Take care.
Hey, Dave Lapham here. While games are over for the season, there's no off-season for the First Star Media Group or First Star Logistics. Join me in the trenches and Joe Goodberry of Bengals on the Brain here on the First Star Media Group YouTube channel. First Star Logistics gave away great prizes during the season, which will continue with exclusive content and special giveaways during the off-season. So please subscribe to the channel and hit the like button to help us continue to grow the channel.